Well, we start with this breaking news. A new judge has been appointed to preside over the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. Judge Ratha Mokgoatlheng will take over from Judge Tshifhiwa Maumela. President Ramaphosa suspended him last week. Our senior reporter, Silindelo Masikane, joins us now. Hi, Slee.
Thank you for that, Jared.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I know you're going to be talking to our legal expert, Elton Hart, as well. But what can you tell us so far? What do you know?
Well, Baron, it's news just in. Our sources have officially confirmed that a new judge has been appointed to preside over the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. And you would remember that this trial actually began last year in April. And so far, it's been hindered by countless delays. And at this stage, what we had heard during the last sitting earlier in June was that the judge that was currently presiding over the trial, that is Judge Tshifhiwa Maumela, that he had fallen ill and that his medical team had informed the court that there is a strong possibility that he would not be able to come back to the trial. And you would also remember that the Judicial Service Commission had also recommended to the president that he be suspended due to delays in the manner in which he was not delivering judgments in a number of matters other than the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. And the confirmation of his suspension came last week, which obviously opened the door and the questions around who might take over and whether or not the trial would have to start from scratch. We had spoken to a number of legal experts who had all really sang the same song in terms of the fact that if there is a new judge appointed, then this trial will definitely have to start de novo. De novo means it has to start from scratch, meaning all the witnesses that we've seen in the trial would have to come back and testify once again. We're sitting at about 5 witnesses that have testified. The 5th, obviously, still in the witness box. That is Zandi Khumalo, one of those who was in the house. And this trial is, of course, expected to resume on the 17th of July. So what we're now looking at is to see what the state is going to do in terms of how this trial is going to start over. Will we see the state recalling the 4 witnesses that have previously testified, or will we see them starting afresh, perhaps with Zandi Khumalo having to start her particular testimony all over again? Now, I have been doing some research in terms of the new judge that has been appointed. This is Judge Ratha Mokgoatlheng, and some of the information that I've been receiving or that I've been getting online is that this is a judge who, ironically, used to be a football player. He actually used to play for Orlando Pirates back in the 60s, and he is actually one of the founders of the Kaizer Chiefs team as well. And from what we've heard from some of those that have had encounters with him in court, is that he's a judge who's quite stern, who's very much by the book, and somebody who's not going to, accept, very tardy behavior in court. So I think it's going to be quite interesting to see how Judge Mokgoatlheng will conduct this particular trial that he's going to preside over, which of course we know is quite a high-profile case. But I don't know much about the law, and I want to bring in a legal expert to unpack this for us. I am joined by legal expert from the UJ Law Clinic, that is Mr. Elton Hart. Thank you so much for your time. We had a brief conversation last week, and you were just one of those legal experts who was agreeing that, in fact, this trial is going to have to start afresh if a new judge is appointed. ENCA has confirmed that a new judge has been appointed and that this trial is going to start from scratch. Perhaps maybe give me your analysis in terms of how you foresee the state proceeding with this particular trial.
Now, obviously, if one looks at it and now that the new judge is on, and as I said on a previous occasion, it's important for the judge to sometimes observe the demeanor of witnesses when they're testifying, because that will help the judge to make a credibility finding, to check if the witness actually is a credible witness and his evidence can be relied on to come to a just and equitable decision. So for me, and I said there is a possibility that the judge can say, I will look at Judge Maumela's notes and try and work with that notes, but that will be very difficult. And the accused can then step in and say, listen, yeah, you did not have a chance to actually observe these witnesses, how they testify, their demeanor, and that might be prejudicial to us. So we're bringing this application that we want the trial to start de novo because we know that there will be some prejudice in it. Because normally de novo trials is used like very sparingly. It's not very seldom that you see a trial starts de novo. There must be some sort of irregularities or prejudice that sits in the matter that they would go that way. But obviously, with 5 witnesses already being led, it's going to be very, very difficult for the judge to actually follow. I say he can, but it will mean that he or she has to do a lot of work in this instance to actually follow and get up to speed with the case. So starting de novo would be the best option, but this will also now, in the eyes of the public, maybe raise some eyebrows to say this is another delay. And obviously we know what the saying is, justice delayed is justice denied. And I think this will also put strain on the NPA on how they approach now. The defense counsel will have a second bite at the cherry because now witnesses already testified, it's under oath, it's on record, and whatever they've testified, they can be held to that and say you cannot now change your evidence that you've given under the previous judge and under oath. So they will be tested, and the NPA's task is now really cut out for them to say, how are you going to deal with this thing? And I see just now we're going to see some stern and tough battles, not just for the defense, but also for the NPA as to what sequence of witnesses they're going to use now going forward.
Perhaps then, Alton, speak to me about how we can foresee the state proceeding with the trial. Do you think they would want to start from the very first witness, or perhaps pick up from the current witness that we have in the box right now? Because you would remember we started off with Sergeant Thabo Mosia, the forensic investigator. Do you think they would want to go that far back, or perhaps just start where they are with the current witness and then maybe work their way backwards and call the previous witnesses at a later stage?
I think if the state does that, now it's going to be even more difficult for them to prove their case, because I would think that the state needs to, there was a specific reason why Advocate Baloyi actually called the witnesses in the sequence he did. There's a strategy behind it, because he called the witnesses that's forensics so that they testify and get cross-examined, so that when he gets to his witnesses that they cannot be confronted with the forensic evidence after the fact. So for him, if he's now going to say, I'm going to continue now with Zandi Kumalo, and then the forensics is there, now it means that they can actually start afresh to say, okay, the forensics, and when the forensics comes back, it might just put a little bit of strain on Baloyi's case and his strategy. And I think there was a reason why he called the ballistics experts to try and sort of have shown what was the ballistic evidence that was there for a specific reason, so that he can shut the door once cross-examination has happened on that. If they come afterwards and they start afresh and they now bring Zandi Kumalo, they bring Tumelo Madlala, they bring Mtokozizi Twala, now, then already there's that ballistics evidence that's now there. Now they can be re-examined with the ballistics evidence now on the table, and that might just make them change their version or give different versions of events, because now they've got evidence that they will be challenged with based on their version. So I think that might be a difficulty for the state, and there was a reason why Advocate Baloyi put the ballistics guys before he brought his witnesses that was in the house.
Speak to me then about how far the record which already exists can be used in the new trial. Can a witness, be posed with questions in terms of how they answered previously in the trial we saw before Judge Maumela. Can the attorneys for the defense then use what the witnesses have said in that record in this new trial? Or is it that whatever they said in that trial is now null and void?
No, definitely that record is there. It was done under oath. It was the evidence. And if they're going to start afresh with them, that I'm sure the defense counsel is now actually sort of half sitting there waiting in the wing to say, okay, now we're going to start. We have now the transcripts of that previous testimonies of you. So we're going to test you again against those things. So to see if you're not going to alter or change your version to a better version so that it suits sort of half the state's case. So that is, it's not out of the question. That things is there, because if you make available evidence on any other things, they can use it against you, especially under cross-examination. Maybe in examination in chief, they might not rely so, but under cross-examination, it's sort of gloves off. There, it's like you can shoot from the hip type of thing, because with examination in chief, you should not ask leading questions, but with cross-examination, it's the playing field it's open and it's rough. It's going to get rough because there's a record, unless they can now remember and stick to that. And obviously for the witnesses to come and tell that story again as they told it on the first, they're going to be questioned each and every corner. So the state will have to sit there and be wide awake and alert to the type of questioning that's going to come, but it's not going to be an easy ride for Advocate Beloy.
And then talk to me now about timelines. You know, we're obviously, with starting again, we're pushing the end of this trial even further back. Just how much pressure is this new judge going to be under to ensure that there is a speedy trial? Because as much as the family of Senzo Meyiwa wants justice, this is going to be perhaps quite costly for the accused, who have to pay for their legal representation. To whose benefit, if any at all, does starting again mean? You know, does it benefit the accused? Does it benefit the state, or does everybody lose with this trial starting afresh?
No, there is some benefits in it for the defense or for the accused, because now they've got a second bite at the cherry. So certain things that was not clarified properly from the get-go with certain witnesses, where you can actually point out discrepancies in evidence, now they've got that opportunity to close that gate. There's also negatives in it, that they have to pay the attorneys again to actually work now for longer hours. So there is a positive and a negative. For the state, their negative lies in that these witnesses is already testified, and now to bring the witnesses back to the box to come and testify about that very same story, witnesses might now feel sort of half drained to have to sit again for 3-4 days in the box, being examined, sitting through examination in chief and then cross-examination, re-examination. And this time around, because of the existing record, it might take a little bit longer, and it might get more hostile for the witnesses that the state will call. So there is benefits and negatives for both sides of the coin. Obviously, the accused persons, they must just now sort of bite the bullet, because I don't think any money can buy your freedom. So I think they will have to make these concessions, but I know for the state, the witnesses will be overburdened to come and re-testify about things that they've already testified. And now there's various versions that's out there. So they need to keep their heads and their stories straight pertaining to what they testified on the first occasion.
Thank you so much for your time this evening. That is legal expert Mr. Alton Hart from the UJ Law Clinic, just giving us some legal analysis in terms of what we can expect with the confirmation that officially the Senzo Meyiwa trial will be starting over from scratch, de novo, and that there is a possibility, of course, that we're going to see the witnesses that have been in the witness box so far being recalled. We're going to look now to the date of the 17th of July to actually see how this trial is going to proceed. And of course, we will be trying to get more reaction and analysis with regards to this development. And of course, we will be looking to that date of the 17th of July as to how we're going to proceed. Back to you in studio.
Thank you so much, Slee. Of course, there you heard it right there from Silindelo Masikane, just basically saying that the trial de novo, it means new trial. And of course, the 17th of July, that's when the court case will be continuing. And very interesting that what Alton Hart said, that, it could be a positive for the state as witnesses and the accused. They won't be able to go back and alter their previous statements. He said they will definitely be tested in court when it comes to the cross-examination, as it is a trial de novo. It's a new trial, but it doesn't mean that the witnesses and the accused can go back on their statements or alter it in any way whatsoever, which is very interesting. But this, of course, means it's another time delay, and that means, Senzo's friends and family will have to wait just so much longer for justice to be served. Thank you so much to our experts, Silindelo Masikane, our senior reporter, and of course, our legal expert, Alton Hart.